coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
Lay all my cards on the table is it comes down to personal versus generic. If you make things personal, you're winning. If you really just stay with generic, I think you're losing.
And now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. It's holiday season and we're talking about holiday gifts for your volunteers. Now, I've seen this a lot on some different social media platforms where people are like, what do I do about holiday gifts? Well, I got to tell you, we have some answers. I don't think you need to make it more complicated than it needs to be, but yes, this holiday season, maybe you're thinking in your mind that you need to do something special for your volunteers. Well, we're grateful that you're here. Good to see you again, Mr. Bill.
Good to see you too. I am so impressed by the snow animation. That was cool.
You've never seen that, huh?
No, if you're listening to us on the podcast, there is snow on the screen. It's very, very realistic and cool.
Yeah, this is going to be like an incentive for people and the Christmas lights and snow, people who are just listeners, they're going to be incentivized to go check out the podcast on YouTube. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's kind of fun. Well, today we're talking about ministry gifts. Now, the reason why I'm dipping to this, number one, it is kind of the holiday season. Number two, it is something that I'm seeing a lot on some of the different closed social media Facebook groups where people are like, hey, any ideas out there for holiday gifts? Well, I think it's important for us to address it, right? I have some I have some opinions and I, rather than like putting it on social media, on like commenting on somebody's thing, I thought, hey, let's do a podcast about this. So how to win with volunteer gifts. Now, Bill, what's your take on this? Just generally speaking, in terms of, providing a gift for your volunteers. Any general thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, we've talked about a lot, and in your course you have this too, is that we do really need to show appreciation for our volunteers, and it's how you pay them, right? Even if they're unpaid staff, that's how you compensate them, by showing your appreciation. So overall, I like gifts, but I also think that it actually could be a trap.
Okay, talk to us about that. The trap of volunteer gifts. Talk to us.
Well, there's a couple of different things that can happen. First, you could give gifts that are like cheapo gifts that you give to your volunteers, and then you just kind of wipe your hands clean of it. And you're like, okay, I appreciated my volunteers. Let's move on. The other thing is, if you go big every year on volunteer gifts and you're just cranking it out, and then you have budgetary concerns the next year and you can't do it, it's like people sometimes come to expect the volunteer gift. Oh, right. I know I'm going to get my $100 gift card this year, or whatever it is, Yeah. And then you're trapped in this cycle of like, I always have to be doing this. These people are coming to expect it.
Right. It's like the Clark Griswold. He buys the swimming pool in his backyard and then doesn't get that's the essence of that Christmas, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, right? That's what sets him off.
Yeah.
It's that expectation. I agree. So we're going to touch on a number of things today about this idea of volunteer gifts. So how to win with volunteer gifts. My big picture, let the cat out of the bag, lay all my cards on the table, is it comes down to personal versus generic. If you make things personal, you're winning. If you really just stay with generic, I think you're losing. I think that's my big, there's the podcast, and we're going to elaborate on it, but thoughts on that, Bill?
Yeah, I think the big thing, I think you're right just off the bat, because when you give generic gifts, it's easy to be like, I did appreciation now. But if the goal is actually to think, what would truly make somebody feel appreciated? Like if you ask that question, then it has to be personal, doesn't it?
Yes, I agree. And in the Lead Ministry course, we talk about, and I provide resources for onboarding your volunteers and having them fill out a little card that like legitimately says, what do you like? What kind of are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? What's your top 5 love languages? What is your top love language? What's your favorite sit down restaurant? What's your favorite fast food thing? Are you Starbucks? Do you not like coffee? So it's just like this little thing that's a get to know you. And then 2 things, you can keep that card about that individual. And if you ever need to, you can refer to that. Fine. If you're kind of extra, you could go into your church CRM. This is like called customer relationship management software. This is going to be like your church database, and you could legitimately fill in fields. And over time, you then have that digitally referenced. You could reference that digitally over time. And so, that kind of thing is like, I can't keep top of mind whether or not somebody is, if their favorite restaurant is Chick-fil-A or if their favorite fast food restaurant is, Cane's Chicken, right? Which is a huge debate in my house, mind you.
I've never had Cane's. Is it good?
Oh, I've never eaten either of them. I haven't eaten fast food in 23 years. Can you believe that, by the way? Is that crazy?
That's amazing.
Now,
good discipline.
Yeah, for sure. Would you consider Chipotle, though? Would you consider that fast food? I don't. No,
I don't think so. They make their ingredients fresh. I think the only downside to Chipotle is just that they cook everything in bad seed oils. So.
Oh, do they? Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah. I'm a beef tallow guy myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Me too.
Yeah. But I can't keep I had 425, 450 volunteers. 225 were every single week. And, 250 were whatever, 200 for sure every week. I can't keep track of that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that this shows your superpower, right? Which is you're a systems guy.
Right.
And so being able to actually record data on your workers for the purpose of, in this case, appreciation is just a genius move. I mean, it's kind of like what the big social media companies do to us, right? They're always collecting information on us.
Yeah.
And they're doing it to sell us something. We're doing it for good.
Yeah. That's right. And so, it is important. It is important to know your people as best you can. Now, here's the other thing too. We talk a lot. I'm going to switch screens real quick. We talk a lot about your 12, your 3, and your 1. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this little image that I have on the screen, again, we're inciting people and incentivizing people to go to the YouTube page. So this is a fantastic graphic that shows kind of a breakdown of our volunteers. And I got to be honest with you. I'm going to have top of mind who my 3 are, who my 12 are, and what makes them tick. That's going to be something that I am going to know how to do. And I'm going to have top of mind about my very own people. However, if you're going to be one of my 3, which is kind of like my ever deepening triangle of people that I'm pouring into, right? I mean, Jesus had the disciples, the 12. He had Peter, James, and John. They were kind of the insiders. And then he had John. And so I had my insiders and I had my John. Her name just happened to be Amy. And so these are my inside people. And I remember pulling Amy aside and I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I know it's not that great of a trade, but you get me and you're an insider with me. Whether that's a privilege or not, I don't know. But you're an insider with me. But part of the cost of being an insider with me is that you have to have your own 3. And I remember her folding her arms and she was like, well, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, you have to. And this is the way that the kingdom is built. And so it didn't take too much convincing, but she had to create her own 3. So hear me out real quick. Rather than me having intimate knowledge of the gift or the, preferences of Chick-fil-A versus, whatever, for 220 weekly volunteers, I was responsible for 12 people.
Yeah.
And Amy was responsible for 12 people. And then Andy was responsible for 12. And then the list goes down. And so that's how we kind of can be personalized with more and more and more people. So I think that it's important. I think we have to have personalized versus generic. And so again, one way you can do that is simply just ask. And by the way, if their love language is gift giving, okay, then they may think it's cool to get a cheap Oriental trading whatever thing. Okay, to be honest with you, that was a real bother to me. I didn't want that at all. And I put this under the heading of thoughtful budgeting. I am not a gift person at all. I could care less about any kind of gift. I would rather have you talk to me, look me in the eye, and tell me specifically what you think I'm doing a good job at. I am a words of affirmation guy. By the way, Bill, what are you?
I would say that I'm a little bit more like words of affirmation and quality time.
Okay, so if somebody took you out to lunch, and you wouldn't even care where it is, maybe you would, I don't know, but I'd look at your card, right? And then I would take you out to lunch and we would sit down. That's quality time. And I would do one-on-one, look you in the eye, and I would tell you exactly how you're doing a great job. That's going to fill your tank and be a form of appreciation that matters to you. That's what I tell people. When it comes to appreciation, do something that matters to that person. And if you don't know what matters to that person, you're going to be at a distinct disadvantage. Okay. Now back to this thoughtful budgeting. I am not a gift person. And so when I was a high school chemistry teacher and the PTO would give all of us a little squishy toy that said, you rock or whatever. And I was like, dude, what a colossal fail. Like, what do you want me to do with this? Squeeze it? Okay, done. I don't know. Yeah. And so then that was a waste of capital, right? And so then the PTO, and I'm going to give them credit. They were trying to do something good, but it landed actually worse for me because I thought it was a waste of money. And I don't want our volunteers to be like, oh, drama, that doesn't even matter to me. First. Second, why are you spending precious kingdom dollars on a trinket?
Right. Yeah, it doesn't matter that much. Yeah.
So I mean, you get the idea, right, Bill?
Oh yeah, I do. One interesting thing our church started doing probably last 10 years is we, instead of doing the trinket thing or giving everyone a $5 gift card to Starbucks or whatever, we started doing this thing where we said every few years, like every 3 years, we are going to do a gratitude banquet. Okay. And what we did is we invited, and they gave it to all the ministry leaders, and they said, you have to invite everyone you want to appreciate who's worked with your ministry in the last 3 years. And so we would send out all these invitations. The church rented out a hall. We brought in a worship band from another church so that our worship band didn't have to be there. And we just celebrated what God did over the last 3 years. We've done it twice now, and it has been a huge win. And during that, we would bring up key volunteers and kind of say like why we appreciate them so much. Yeah. And that was huge.
Okay. So, I mean, little did either of us know that we were going to be talking about what you just brought up. I just got back from Colorado, and I was the speaker for their big annual church volunteer appreciation. And it was legitimately special for these people. And this church takes it very seriously, like what they did, what you did. They took everybody off site. It wasn't at their church. It was at a special banquet hall. They had good food. And then they also had kid food, and I saw some of the adults eating the kid food, just saying. Right?
Hard to pass up a chicken tender.
Chicken tender and a piece of pizza, right? But it was science themed, and I did a version of the Amazing Chemistry Show. But what they pulled me aside, and the lady who pulled it off is the senior pastor's wife. Very, very, very good people, very cool family. And she had tears in her eyes, and she said, "Thank you for making it personal." And so it wasn't just like I walked in and was like, well, here's the chemistry show out of the box. What I did is I really fine-tuned everything that I shared to say, hey, you are a part of kingdom work because because you're volunteering, the kingdom is moving forward. So it was very, very, very personalized. So this is, and they spent some serious money on their food. They spent some serious money on their decorations. And it was an honoring thing for their volunteers, no question. So instead of giving trinkets, they actually gave some real true treasure in terms of community. They were thoughtful about who was going to sit where, all of these crazy things, right? So a banquet, I think that's huge. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the key to it really, as I think about it, is you can really appreciate people well with that type of community and relationship. Like make your volunteer appreciation relational, and it's a win because people walk away with a memory from that and saying,
Bingo.
I'm so glad that I'm part of this.
Yeah. As opposed to, this is always my go-to cringe thing where you get like the mini $100,000 bar, not even the full size $100,000.
Yeah.
You get the mini $100,000 and then like on an off-kilt photocopied piece of paper, it's not even squared up. You know what I mean? It's like off kilt even a little bit. You cut it wrong. You know what I mean? No thought. And it says, you're worth $1 million to us. That is then shotgun approach broadcast to everyone. Now, again, what are the cringeworthy things? I don't think that the $100,000 and saying you're worth $1 million, I don't think that's cringeworthy. I think the mass production and watch this, the quarter sheet that you tape on is off kilt and is sliced wrong on the big like arm cutter.
Yep.
So it just screams mass production.
Right. And I'm sure there's some people out there who are going, oh, shoot, guilty of this. And
it's okay.
What I would say to them, yeah, we've all been there. And what I'd say to them is like, there's actually a place for those little appreciation things. Yes. Hey, here's just a little nudge that we recognize you, right? But don't have that be your only appreciation, right? Find ways to make it more personal, find ways to make it more relational. And
so as we kind of close, we're going to keep it short today, but I call it special gifts for special people, right? It's two things. Okay, I've got a lot of thoughts here. First of all, as we've already talked about, find out who your people are, give them gifts or give them appreciation in a way that's going to matter to them. Okay, we've already covered that. However, everybody doesn't have to be the same.
Oh no, Josh, you have to be the same in the church. Every single person has to have the same equal gift.
Oh, no. Say it ain't so. Yeah, I know.
No, that is
that's a mentality. A mentality.
It is. Yes.
I know you're being facetious, but that is a pervasive mentality. That everybody, that's like, well, Bill Johnson, he served in the nursery once. I don't want him to all of a sudden look over and see Connie Smith, who serves 96 slots a year, that she got something different. Well, actually, I'm okay with Bill seeing a difference here because there's a great disparity. There's a great juxtaposition between what he did and what she does.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm okay with what does it say in, I believe it's one of the Timothy books. I believe it's 1 Timothy where it says, don't muzzle the ox while they're threshing. This has nothing to, God wasn't necessarily as concerned about ox as he was about his people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they're pulling load, let them eat a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to have a special appreciation for special people. That's just the reality of the world that we live in.
Yes. And to him who has been given much, much is expected. And I'm going to reward those who pull serious load and have serious, like sacrifice for the kingdom. Okay, a couple quick things. Number one, there are unique ways that you can appreciate people that have nothing to do with budget whatsoever, but it has to do with preferential treatment because they're sacrificing of themselves. And so for the Christmas Eve service, I can save seats in the front for my key people. And I can say, oh, these are saved. And then all of a sudden, their family gets to roll up 2 minutes before the service starts and they got the best seats in the house. Now, is that a huge thing? Well, when you got small kids and you're fighting to, bless you.
Excuse me.
That's okay. And you're fighting to get hey, we're real here on the Lead Ministry podcast, right? And you're fighting to get your kids to the Christmas Eve service, and it's going to be a late one anyway. And somebody who pulls serious load for me, that is a gift to them. Okay.
Yeah.
So think creatively.
Yeah, I love that idea. Like, think outside the box, and it doesn't have to be something monetary or something physical. It's how do you actually show honor. That this is a person of honor and high regard that we're celebrating. I also would say that along with that, as you think about those things, the cool thing is that there's actually a downstream effect of appreciating those special people. And what it is that you're actually celebrating what you want to see in your volunteers, right? So if you have a really highly dedicated, awesome worker and you celebrate that, the people who are kind of like have their toe dipped in the water, they're going to go, oh, this is a win for this church. I want to be part of what's a win for this church.
You're exactly right. And I would say, here's how I put it. People move toward the applause. Mm-hmm. People move toward the applause. And so whatever I applaud, people are going to move toward. Now, this is interesting because this isn't necessarily about Christmas gifts, but it's about honoring people. So we had a class that my wife and I taught called Red Card. We would only take 9 families at a time. It was highly coveted. People literally wanted to be selected to be a part of this class. It was not going to work on a mass scale. It was mom, dad, and kids. And we all were together for 6 Sunday nights. We provided good food and we did some serious teaching that took a little bit of commitment. So we had a lady who came up to us and was like, she was bold and she said, why am I not included in this? And Amy, my number one, she said, well, we have a list of people. You're on the list, but the list of people who got selected first and then second for this 6-week class are people who have served serious amounts of time with us in children's ministry. And so all of a sudden, it was a subtle way to go, hey, you say no to us. And we're going to get to you because we want everybody to have this class, but there is preferential treatment to those who are pulling serious load with us. It wasn't a slap in the face, but it was a reality to her.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So another thing, by the way, this was Amy. This was not me. I was a worker bee for Amy to pull this off. But instead of giving any type of monetary gift, what we did is Amy and Beth, and Jackie, they all went off-site and did a couple of days of baking. And it was like legit, real deal baking, right? With like sugar cookies and the twisty kind of cookie that has 2 different colored batter, whatever. All of the insanity that they went to. So like basically think of, if your wife has ever gone to like a cookie exchange.
Yes.
And she comes home with like, oh, I'm glad you grabbed that one. We have 3 of those really insane. Somebody took a lot of time and attention. Okay. Well, we did all of the insane, took a lot of time and a lot of attention. And we literally, so then they would bake them. And so then me, Andy, and Carter would be kind of the decorators and we would just be in mass production. It took a week, like 2 or 3 days of our lives. But then we would put like legit plastic cellophane, twist it with a gold little twist tie. So these were legit. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't cost us very much money. It took some time, but people grew to really love the specialty like cookie pack that we gave them. Make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like handmade things that took you time and effort and focus. Okay. Those are great, unique gifts.
Yes. And so it was mass produced, but but the exchange was high amount of time and intentionality. Like this is real. There you go.
Right. And you can emphasize that too by, using social media and stuff like we're doing the great we're doing the great cookie bake right now. We're so, as we bake these cookies, we're praying over you volunteers.
Yep.
Can't wait to give these to you. Those sorts of things. You hype it up.
Yes.
And then it makes it even more special.
Okay. So I hope somebody else out there does this, because we were not in like social media thinking mode, I don't think, but that would have been amazing to have, like, here we are baking. We're at Amy's house. Here's the dough. And then the next day, here's Josh and Andy and Carter decorating. Here's the stack of plastic cellophane, which did not cost us very much, and the zip ties, right?
Yep.
These were, okay. So the other thing too is, do you know that there's like special string that is red and white and is kind of twisted on itself? I think it's called, like, I don't even know. I'm not a crafty kind of guy, but we didn't spend very much, but it looked classy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so that's what we did. Now I want to do one more thing before we close, because this idea, and I have this in the Lead Volunteers material, and I haven't talked about it for a long time. It's called the Candy Bar Celebration. And really what it is that at that volunteer banquet that you're speaking about, you have a moment where you are cherry picking special people who have gone above and beyond the call of duty. You take a paper plate and you write on there, or no. Okay, we have done it paper plate wise, but then we ended up upgrading and had like literal certificates that looked legit and had like gold pseudo embossed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we put on there the Snickers Award. And so then this was a gift that we called somebody up. We said, hey, listen, you in the midst of ministry grind, you always make us laugh. And because you do that, we want to honor you with the Snickers Award. Now, I'm going to tell you, we would put on like graduation ceremony type music. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It wasn't actually like the da 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 da. It wasn't that kind of music, but it was like of that kind of vein, right? In that vein. And then we would invite people up. They would have no idea what it was. And I'm getting emotional right now. Like, I could literally tear up, because we had 75 different candy. I have them all listed out in Lead Volunteers, and the names of that candy bar, and then a thing, right? Like the Payday candy bar. Like, you bring so much value. You do this, you do this, you do this. You are like the key player in so many areas. And then we would play this music and we would bring them up, and people would cry when we were giving them a candy bar, and we were calling out their unique thing. And then I remember one person, like, I mean, I know my people. And as they walked up, they were walking up with such anticipation. What have I been selected for? Because they heard 7 other people before them, and they're just like, they had this feeling of, they were like a little kid.
That's awesome. I love that idea. It's kind of like the Dundies, but like a better version.
Okay. Yes. Tell everybody what the Dundies are quickly.
So in the series, The Office, they do the Dundies every year. And they go to, what do they go to, like Chili's or something, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't remember what
really high end, you know.
And those episodes are such a mess.
They are. Like people get drunk and they're falling all over, and Michael ends up totally sticking his foot in his mouth.
Yes, over and over again.
But the intent of personalization, and they had these little awards with like a trophy.
Yes, absolutely. Like kind of like the Oscars, but just the Office version of it. But yeah, what you're describing is something much more personalized, and people remember those things.
Oh my word! And it cost us 50 cents.
Right. Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's the way to personalize it. I love it.
But I'm telling you, I'm not overstating this. I am literally. You're talking about the memory of it all. I was the one giving these things. I never received one of them. But truly, it is better to give than to receive. I feel I am drawn back to the emotion of those moments. And it was unbelievably palpable. I could tear up. It was so special. And what was crazy, Bill, is I know people might be like, well, the music, okay, that sounds cheesy. It actually made it not cheesy, because if I would have just been like, okay, dead silence, okay, who we got next here? It was a little bit weird, right?
Right.
But the music actually filled in the space.
Yep, absolutely.
And
people people will respond on how you treat it, right? So if you treat it as cheesy,
Yes.
people are going to feel cheesy. But if you treat it as like, no, like we really are celebrating you and we're excited about this and there's music and everything, then people will respond to that, you know?
Yes. And it wasn't, the first time that I ever did this was on paper plates. And that was in youth ministry years ago. And it was cool. It was cool. But then when we took it to the next level and had cardstock printed certificate with like gold embossing, you know what I mean? People, it had the appearance that we actually cared because guess what? We actually did. So it's pretty good stuff. Well, gang, here's the deal. Bottom line, special gifts, special people. Be thoughtful about how you can do gifts in a unique way this year. Hey, this was kind of a fun little episode here, gang. So bottom line, I want to make sure that everybody knows we care about you guys. And our gift to you is just a couple of good ideas, right? That's what we want. We want you to have some good ideas for how to honor your volunteers in a way that's going to matter to them and in a way that's going to be memorable and lasting. So gang, we're very, very, very grateful for you guys. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Lead Ministry Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and visit leadvolunteers.com for more episodes and resources. Thanks for listening.